From the moment we open our eyes in the morning, we begin to interpret the world. We interpret the tone of someone's voice, the expression on a stranger's face, the mood in a room. And yet, very rarely do we pause to ask ourselves, is what I am perceiving actually true, or is it simply my interpretation? The mind is quick to label. It categorizes experiences as good or bad, people as kind or rude, events as lucky or unfortunate, all based on a framework it built from past experiences, beliefs, and emotions. But perception, though fast, is not always accurate. What we see is filtered. What we hear is selected. What we believe to be true may only be the truth according to us, not the truth itself. Consider a mirror that has been fogged by breath. The reflection is still there, but it is unclear, distorted. Our mind works in the same way. Our assumptions are the fog. We assume someone dislikes us because of a look they gave, or we assume we failed because the outcome wasn't what we wanted. These assumptions are rarely based on full understanding. They arise automatically, without effort, and become the foundation of further thought. To think correctly, we must recognize this automatic process and interrupt it. We must train ourselves to step back and ask, is this true? Or am I just interpreting it that way because of my past, my fears, or my expectations? This act of questioning is not a weakness. It is strength. In a world that moves fast, reacting without thinking is common. But a disciplined mind does not simply accept its first impression. It waits. It observes. It challenges itself before it challenges others. To question your own perception is to say, I may not see clearly right now. Let me wait until the fog settles. This is not indecision. It is clarity in the making. Correct thinking begins not with knowledge, but with awareness, especially awareness of our tendency to judge quickly and hold tightly to those judgments. Many conflicts in life do not arise from facts, but from interpretations of facts. Two people can experience the same event and walk away with two completely different understandings. One feels insulted, the other meant no offense. One sees failure, the other sees a lesson. What makes the difference? Not the event, but how it was perceived. If our perception is based on past wounds, insecurities, or ego, then our thinking will follow that distortion. We will argue based on misunderstanding. We will suffer based on assumption. This is why questioning our initial perception is not only useful, it is essential. In ancient traditions, practitioners were taught to clean the lens through which they view the world. Meditation, self-inquiry, and silence were not practices of escape. They were methods of clarity. Without this clarity, even the most intelligent person can be deceived by their own thinking. So when we speak of thinking correctly, it must begin here by doubting our first thoughts, not out of fear, but out of wisdom, because a thought that is not examined becomes a belief. And once it becomes belief, it begins to shape your reality, whether it is true or not. The mind is like water. When it is agitated, it becomes cloudy and difficult to see through. But when it is still, it reflects everything with clarity. In today's world, the mind is rarely still. From the moment we wake up, we are bombarded with information. Voices, messages, headlines, opinions, and distractions. The result is a constant inner noise, a relentless commentary that never stops. Most people do not realize this noise is not reality. It is a reaction to it. And when the mind is always reacting, there is no space to think with precision. The mind becomes tangled, not by truth, but by its own movement. To think correctly, You must first learn to observe the mind without feeding it. This requires silence, not merely the absence of external sound, but an internal quietness, where thoughts arise but are not immediately followed. It is the space between thoughts that allows true insight to form, like watching a fire burn from a distance, rather than throwing yourself into the flames. This kind of mental stillness cannot be achieved by force. It cannot be reached by shouting over the mind. It comes through practice, patience, and awareness, by learning to watch rather than chase every thought that arises. Many people confuse thinking with clarity. Just because the mind is active does not mean it is accurate. A racing mind is like a person running without direction. There may be a lot of movement, but very little progress. In this state, decisions are made hastily, reactions are automatic, and deeper understanding is blocked. When the mind is still, thoughts become slower, more deliberate. There is space between stimulus and response. And in that space lies choice, insight, and awareness, the true foundation of correct thought. Stillness is also essential because it allows emotions to settle. A disturbed mind is often not just full of thoughts, it is full of emotion. Anger, fear, and desire move the mind like strong winds on the surface of a lake. In such conditions, it is impossible to see below. Stillness is the calm that follows discipline, a quiet stability that comes when you stop feeding the mind with constant stimulation. In this calm, emotions no longer control you. They still appear, but they are no longer your master. And when emotions are seen clearly, thought becomes more truthful. Training the mind to be still does not mean becoming passive or empty. It means learning to rest in awareness, not in reaction. This is the root of many ancient practices. To sit, to breathe, to listen, not for escape, but to sharpen perception. Only in silence can the real nature of your thoughts be seen. Without this stillness, you will live in confusion, even if your mind is full of knowledge. But with stillness, even a few thoughts can bring deep understanding. The value is not in how many thoughts you have, but in the clarity of the ones you choose to follow. Emotions are natural. They arise before we invite them. They arrive unannounced. A tightness in the chest, a sudden surge of anger, a wave of sorrow. They are not the problem. What becomes a problem is when we allow them to take the role of commander instead of messenger. Most people live at the mercy of their emotions. When anger comes, they become angry. When fear arises, they become fear. There is no space between the emotion and the action. This is not strength, it is reactivity. A mind ruled by emotion cannot think clearly, and without clarity, correct thinking is impossible. To observe an emotion is to create distance from it. Not to suppress it, but to see it for what it is. Imagine a storm passing through the sky. If you are inside the storm, all you know is the chaos. But if you are watching from a mountaintop, you see it move, evolve, and eventually pass. This is how the trained mind relates to emotion. It watches without being consumed. It feels without being driven. Emotions become objects of observation rather than identities to wear. This practice transforms the inner life from chaos to order, from slavery to freedom. There is a false belief that to feel deeply is to be weak, or that to control emotion means to be cold. But true emotional discipline is not numbness. It is sensitivity without surrender. When you are no longer reacting blindly, you begin to notice the subtle beginnings of emotion. You begin to catch anger in its earliest stage, before it speaks, before it acts. You begin to see how fear arises not always from danger, but from memory. You recognize how desire manipulates thought, disguising itself as logic. Through observation, emotions lose their power to deceive. A person who does not observe their emotions becomes predictable, easily manipulated by both external forces and internal illusions. A single insult can destroy their peace. A single compliment can inflate their ego. Their mind becomes like a leaf in the wind, no direction of its own. But the one who trains to observe rather than obey becomes still even when provoked, calm even when praised. They are not hard like stone. They are flexible like bamboo, bending but not breaking. They have built an inner foundation that emotion cannot easily shake. This inner discipline does not come from wishing or reading. It comes from daily practice. To sit with the breath and watch the rising of frustration without acting on it. To feel jealousy and not let it speak through the tongue. To sense sadness and let it flow, but not let it take control of the mind. Each moment of observation is a form of training, and over time, the mind learns emotions will come, but they do not have to lead. It is in this separation, this silent watching, that correct thinking can emerge, unclouded by the storms that pass through the heart. The mind, like the body, becomes what it is trained to be. A sword is not sharp by nature. It must be forged, shaped, and refined through pressure and repetition. In the same way, clear and correct thinking is not automatic. It is a discipline. It must be cultivated intentionally. Just as a martial artist returns to the same form, the same breath, the same posture, again and again, until movement becomes understanding. Many people believe their thoughts are who they are, but thought is not identity. Thought is a tool, and like any tool, it must be sharpened, or it becomes dangerous in unskilled hands. If you observe your mind throughout the day, you will see that most of its activity is not deliberate. It is habitual. You think the way you've always thought. You react as you've always reacted. You follow assumptions without testing them. Speak without examining the roots of your words. This is mental laziness, not because you are weak, but because no one taught you to train your thinking. A martial artist would never step into combat with an untrained body, but many step into life each day with an untrained mind and wonder why they suffer. Discipline in thought begins with awareness. You must see the patterns before you can break them. Training your thinking means developing the ability to pause, to not rush to judgment, to challenge your first conclusion, to sit with uncertainty instead of filling it with noise. Just as a fighter must learn to control his breath under pressure, the mind must learn to remain steady under confusion or discomfort. Discipline is not about suppressing thought. It is about guiding it. It is the quiet refusal to be controlled by impulse. You begin to ask, is this thought helpful? Is it true? Does it lead toward clarity or away from it? This kind of inner questioning is a mental form of kata, repetition with purpose. You must also build your mental strength with practice. Read not to collect information, but to understand. Reflect daily, not for comfort, but for correction. Speak less, and when you speak, choose words that are true and necessary. Just as a martial artist refines each movement until it becomes part of their nature, your thinking must be refined until wisdom replaces reflex. Not every thought deserves your attention. Not every idea is worth entertaining. Discipline means learning to choose, and choosing well. It means saying no to noise and yes to depth, even when it is uncomfortable. This is not easy work. It will feel slow at first, even unnatural. But over time, you will notice the shift. You will begin to respond instead of react. You will think before you speak and observe before you think. You will become more accurate, more intentional, more calm, not because the world is less chaotic, but because your mind has been trained to stay steady within it, like the martial artist who has trained so deeply that calm remains even in combat. Your thinking will no longer collapse under pressure. It will be precise, disciplined, and aligned with truth. The mind is powerful, but power without direction is waste. It can analyze, imagine, create, solve, yet without a guiding aim, all this energy scatters. One day you are motivated, the next you are lost. One moment you pursue something with passion, and the next you abandon it. This is not weakness. It is the nature of a mind without purpose. Just as a boat without a rudder is at the mercy of the wind, so too is a person without purpose at the mercy of distraction, emotion, and external pressure. Purpose is the anchor. It gives the mind form, direction, and clarity. Without it, your thinking becomes reactive rather than intentional. Many people think their problem is lack of discipline or motivation, but often the root is deeper. They lack a clear why. Without a reason, discipline becomes a chore. Without a destination, effort feels empty. Purpose is not a luxury for the fortunate or the enlightened. It is a necessity for anyone who wants to live with clarity. When you know why you are doing something, even pain becomes meaningful. When the purpose is forgotten, even comfort becomes meaningless. A mind with purpose sees through discomfort. A mind without purpose is distracted by ease. Correct thinking does not happen in a vacuum. It depends on context, and purpose provides that context. You begin to filter your thoughts. Does this support my direction, or does it pull me off course? You begin to manage your attention. Is this worth my time, or is this noise? You learn to say no, not from rejection, but from alignment. You no longer chase everything that glitters. You no longer confuse movement with progress. Purpose simplifies the mental world. It narrows your focus, and paradoxically, through narrowing, you gain depth and strength. Purpose is not always found in grand ideas. It can be simple, quiet, even private. To live honestly, to serve others, to develop skill, to master yourself. These are all valid purposes. What matters is that your mind has a direction it respects. Once that direction is chosen, the quality of your thoughts begins to shift. They become more disciplined, more strategic, more aligned. A person without purpose asks, "What do I feel like doing today?" A person with purpose asks, "What must be done to stay on course?" One is driven by mood, the other is guided by meaning. It is also through purpose that suffering becomes transformed. Pain without reason is suffering. Pain with purpose becomes fuel. When your mind is aligned with a deeper reason, it becomes stronger than circumstance. You stop asking for everything to be easy. You start asking only for the strength to continue. This is not mere motivation. It is a reorientation of your mental compass. With purpose, the mind becomes steady. Without it, it becomes lost, wandering from desire to desire, from thought to thought, never arriving, always chasing. Discipline alone is not enough. Clarity alone is not enough. Purpose is what binds them together.